we'll talk about, like, do we think he's the right man for the job, and do we think that he can survive in this turbulent time? And I guess we'll start with, do we think he's the right man for the job? We've been going back and forth in the WhatsApp groups with Sim and Brains, and David's been chiming in here and there, but he's not got involved in the nitty gritty 4 in the morning jobs. But we'll start off with you, Dave. Do you think he is the right man for the job still?
Do you know what, Ben? He sort of lost me there at the weekend and the last three games in general. You look at the Tamworth game. Yeah, you can praise their spirit and everything else, but at the end of the day, that should be an easy game for Tottenham Hotspur. We should be playing them off the park. You look at the Arsenal game, self-motivating. We went out there, we didn't fight. They bullied us all over the pitch. And then you look at the Everton game, and you're thinking, okay, win that, you stave off the relegation talk, you buy yourself a bit of time. 3-0 down at half time, and we went with a formation that's clear we didn't work on. After the North London Derby, you're in for recovery. And the day before a game, you're in for light work. No time to work on it. And that was reflected on the football pitch as well. We were so disjointed in terms of trying to play out from the back, so much gaps in the back line for Calvert-Lewin to run through. You're talking about an Everton team that scored 15 goals all season. Scored a third of their goals against us inside 45 minutes. We made them look good. They've been crap all season long. And I've just got to the point now where I've had my breaking point. I'm starting to get really worried about, this relegation talk. And when I look at it, I don't think we've got the forward line to get us out of it. When you do get into that mess, you need goals. We don't have the forward line. We don't have the characters to pull us through that sort of battle. You need people that are willing to put people up against walls, tell some home truths and stuff like that. Don't have them sort of characters within the dressing room to be able to stave off that. And you look at the teams currently right down below us, we haven't bet any of them. So, I'm starting to get really, really concerned. And where I'm at now, I'm off the Ange train until proven otherwise. It's up to him and the team now to start getting a run of results together to get me, and I presume, many other people back on board. At the end of the day, all we want to do is win football games. But we're starting to become really concerned about, that the relegation.
Are you are you seriously concerned about that? Do you think it's a reality that Spurs could go down this season?
Do you know what, Ben? I said something 2 years ago when the Harry Kane saga was coming about, and granted, the guy wanted to go, but I said if we don't replace him properly, and you've got the declining sun on the horizon, I said, and we don't replace him properly, we're careering towards a relegation battle, regardless of the manager and stuff. I said that. We're here today, so I'm deeply worried.
Yeah. So, Brains, how are you feeling about it? You flip flopping? You sticking to your guns? Where are you at?
It's been tough though, because it's like, so I come from it from a kind of, being a Spurs fan since 1990, and being a footballer, like being in football now for 36 years. So I'm, you know, getting my badges. I've been in teams, I've been in 11s teams that are going through tough times, and they bring a new manager and bring a new manager, and a young manager, sometimes the manager be younger than me, and I'm his starting striker. And they'll come in with an attitude and an arrogance and go, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And as soon as they walk out, everyone looks around, the eyes roll. And that's what a football team is. We're all humans that sit in that dressing room, like the making of a man is not how they handle success. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote. The making of a man is how they handle failure and defeat. So what I see this whole time that he's been in is flaws fundamentally in what you need to do when you take over a team, right? You must make your team hard to beat. Number one, even if you're playing front foot, fast, ball moving, domination, you must still make your team very hard to beat. And that's not just 2 players at the back or 3 at the back. Regardless of formation, you must build a mentality which is we don't get turned over, we fight for each other, we get tight. When we go up 2-0 in a game or 1-0 in a game, before halftime, that's what I'm talking about. But make yourself hard to beat. Get close, tight, everyone fights. That's where it's easy to, you want the game in fast flowing football to go back and forth, but 5 minutes before halftime, and then when you go 2 up and you go into the second half, game state changes. And any manager who refuses to see that game state changes, that you have to be tight before halftime, don't lose a goal then, because everything can fall apart. Getting your players in at halftime when you're 2-0 up, or when you're just 1-0 up, getting them in at 1-1, getting them in even at 2-0 when it's starting to fall apart. You've lost it. You've lost the game. No matter what you try to do, unless you have that mentality of no, this is the game we love. Get tight, get strong. We do not lose this. His mentality is we do not stop, which is amazing if you have the first mentality right. If you build the first thing, because then you believe inside you that you've got the strength that if they turn us over, we'll get back, we'll get strong. So you can play the fast front foot way. We have not ever built that. Even when Van de Ven's in, even when Romero's in, we've never built that believability of we are hard to beat. So of course you're going to see runs of 10 games sometimes. You're going to see a good little run of games. But I have not once seen that this team has a mentality, and not just in that mentality of mentality across the board as people. It's like he will always say, I'm not here to parent or to father these boys. Like, I'm not here to be their dad. Okay, and that's fine. But that is what management is about. Because if you don't do that, if you don't put an arm around the players who need it, like Matters, and if you don't be very disciplined and strong with Basuma, then they will smoke laughing gas on camera and then they're out for games. Then one of them will make a racist remark and he's out for games, and it will affect your season. So what I mean about be hard to beat, be hard to be ripped apart by the media. Be strong mentally. Build your team from the back forward. Be strong internally defensive. And then you can play beautiful, glorious football. He just never did the first thing. So that was the thing. When I saw this from the start, I always was going, this will get us murdered more times than it will ever win. So I never thought he was the guy to take us to success. And also preface that with, that he's coming into the club, that he's got the hardest job of any manager we've had, because he's coming in to change a mindset. He's now not got the great players anymore. He's got this average squad, and he's got people who are not ever gonna back him. So he's come in at the worst time. And so from knowing that, I've just always thought, I wanted to say Ange so much. I wanted it to work. I do want it to work. It was never going to work. And it never can work, because fundamentally he is flawed to be the kind of manager that we need, which is strength first, then play attacking football. So I don't think he's the right manager for the job. Although I would love if he turned it around, but no, I don't think he's the right guy for the job. And also at Spurs, I don't think anyone is under Levy.
Yeah, that's obviously a key point there. But I mean, when you're looking at the parameters of Daniel Levy, I mean, can a manager that plays so kind of gung-ho, free-flowing, attacking football, apart from if you get very lucky, like a Maurizio Pochettino, can you get a manager like this that ever works? I mean, Sim, you would argue yes.
Well, we had other managers who were much more pragmatic, and it also didn't work. It's not necessarily. I don't think it's ever a style of can this style work under a certain regime. For me, it's if you're running a football club and you decide what kind of philosophy, or what you decide how we want your team to play. You kind of, is it attacking football? Do you want a team with a philosophy where you're building kind of structure of attacking football, and whoever is in charge, that's kind of what you want to do? Or is it kind of, we're going to just pump loads of money and we're going to go for trophies immediately, and we're going to hold every single manager to the highest standard? And if they're not winning the league like Real Madrid every year, then they just go and we'll bring a new manager. We're not going to do that, right? We're not a club who's going to just pump hundreds of millions every year in the pursuit of success, and basically hold every manager. I don't think it's fair to hold every manager to the highest standard where, for example, Chelsea, under Ancelotti finished second, out the door. We want someone who's going to finish first. We're not like that, right? We tried to be like that in a weird way with these other managers, and it completely flopped because we're not going to invest what's necessary to be that kind of team. So we have to do things in a different way. And obviously under Pochettino it worked. You gradually build a team that could obviously compete, and it takes time. And now the idea was we want to do that again. And Ange is trying to implement a mentality and a way of playing that could have sustainable long-term results, play unbelievable, intense, swashbuckling football, which we have seen evidence of when it does work. We all love to see it, and I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant to watch. Now, can a manager play that way at this kind of football club? It's going to take time for it to work. It's not going to work, especially under the current circumstances when we have all the problems that we currently have. Then it's going to be very, very difficult. But can it work in theory? Can we build a team eventually that could play this kind of football and be successful and compete at the top? It can work, but it needs time. It needs investment. You need to be smart, and you need to have the right investments. You need to give these young players like Gray and Bergvall time to grow. You need to give Ange the time to build this kind of build the squad that's suited to the demands of the Premier League and European football when you're competing for those kind of things. I don't believe inherently just because he's at this club and he wants to play this type of football, it cannot work. It can work, but I think at the moment, the way things are, when you're in the situation that we're in, it's very difficult to get out of this situation, keep playing the type of football that he wants to keep playing, when we keep picking up injury after injuries every single week, and he's asking more and more players even more. He's asking more out of these players because we're losing games and we're the performances are decreasing, and he's kind of saying, look, we need even more from you because we're losing games, we need that extra effort, and then we're losing even more players, and it's kind of a vicious cycle that's currently happening right now, which is leading us to spiral in the situation that we're in. But I don't think inherently, because he wants to play this way of football and he's at this club, it just can't work. I don't believe that, in my opinion. I think it can work. I think it just takes time.
I agree with that. In general, Jose Mourinho's football would have worked. Conte's football would have worked if we do go about the way they want to do things.
Exactly.
The problem is, and the one thing I said it when we hired, I don't know if you remember, Ben, I said the biggest misconception about Ange Postecoglou is a project manager. He's not. He's a winner. He wants to win things straight away. He's done it everywhere he's been. And this is the big problem at Tottenham. We want to go on a project. We want to build something, but we don't have the guy that's known for doing that. Postecoglou is not. Go on.
No, just to interject there, I agree with you. He's not been a project manager in the sense that he stays at clubs for 3-4 years and implements all these. But what he does do, and what he's been trying to do at this club, which he had definitely been doing, is he comes in, he completely lowers the average age of the squad. He does blood in younger players. That was underway
before Postecoglou came in, though. Paratici said about that long before Postecoglou came to the club, about lowering the average age of the squad.
No, but that's what. No. My point is that's what Ange does at his previous clubs. And he's done that all his other previous clubs, completely bring in fresh blood players, get rid of the experienced players who are no longer doing it, and blood in younger players and give them fresh opportunities. That's exactly what he has been doing at other clubs, and that's his remit here. 100%. He's not been a manager like I don't know Pochettino or whatever, who's been at clubs for a long time and implements like all these things. But definitely in a rebuilds in a short space of time, he definitely has been doing that.
Look, 100%, he'll want to lower the average age of the squad because he needs workhorses. He needs people that have legs in his team, but not to the extent that we've done it to him, over the course of the summer where you're bringing in a load of teenagers. There's a middle ground there. And for me, I think, any manager's style of philosophy can work at Tottenham Hotspur, but we don't implement it. The problem we've got is you look at Jose Mourinho, Conte and Postecoglou. They're all steadfast in their belief, their philosophy and their way of playing. But the way we operate in the transfer market, we operate for the club's benefit and not for the managers. And this is the inherent problem at Tottenham Hotspur. We brought in Jose Mourinho and Postecoglou. We spent money in every other area, but the big money where it really needed to be spent so that we could get the benefit of them was across the back line. We didn't do it. We gave them shit options to work with. Then Postecoglou walks in, we go, we're going to sell Harry Kane, Son's on the decline, but don't worry about that. We'll bring in Timo Werner to replace him, and go and make your system work going forward. It's just we continuously get it wrong. When we go and pump money into a data-led scouting model, which is designed to operate the way Brighton does so that we don't lose as much money as we've lost in the transfer window, you're bringing in players for the long-term future of the club. You're not sitting there going to the manager, what's your style, what's your philosophy, and who do you know around the game that you need to bring in here to make it work? We're not doing that. So it's never going to work out like that. And that's where, fans at some point do have to get patience with a manager. But at the end of the day, if the club are going to do this, then they have to bring in a manager that's known for adapting to situations, for showing flexibility, not managers that are steadfast in their philosophy, because this is where the mismatch is happening. The transfer philosophy and the managers we're bringing in are not matching up. And that's where it's where you get this Conte style blowouts, the Jose Mourinho style blowouts. And you'll probably get one from Postecoglou at some point as well. But this is the big problem. We don't give them enough to make their football work. Like, the thing is, Postecoglou came in here. He demonstrated the first 10 games of the season he works. He's demonstrated at times against the big teams this season it works. But we failed him. Last January, when we had Son away at the Asian Games, we had Sarr and Basuma away at AFCON, we had a load of injuries. Over to you, Johan Lang. What can you do? Timo Werner, Radu Dragusin didn't get the help we needed last January. You go into the summer then. We had glaring problems. The only player they brought to improve his first 11 was Dom Solanke. Everyone else is kids and teenagers. You know, you look at what we spent the Harry Kane money on. We spent it on James Maddison from a relegated Leicester, Udebur from a relegated Burnley, Johnson from a Nottingham Forest team fighting relegation, Dominic Solanke from a Bournemouth team that have notoriously been fighting relegation to try and get ahead of the situation. We spent money on Richarlison at an Everton team fighting relegation. And, you know, we just don't have the forward players right now to make this work. I'm sorry, but you need better caliber forward players. And even in this January, we're waiting around 4 signings. It's evident. You need to act early, which means there has to be a recognition inside the club. You're going to have to spend a little bit more on players than maybe what you were willing, because you got us into this situation. And again, we've only brought in one player, and we're sitting here on the 21st, 22nd of January, sitting here twiddling our thumbs, waiting for it. I turn on Sky Sports today. Forest are putting in a bid for Johan Wissa. I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, who Tottenham putting in a bid for? Absolutely zilch. It's nowhere near good enough. And to be honest with you, Johan Lang is escaping so much at this football club to a large degree. When we've needed help across all 3 windows, he has not demonstrated that he can get in one player of quality into this club to be able to help the situation. All he's been able to do is get a Werner or Dom Solanke, which are your average journeymen, and the rest are all youngsters that he's got into this football club. He can sell the dream of Tottenham Hotspur to youngsters who want to make a Premier League move. But he can sell the Premier League dream. What he can't sell is Tottenham Hotspur to players the way Paratici did. When Paratici was in charge, he looked after the academy, brought in young players, brought in players for the here and now, and built a scouting department. And even when there wasn't any in the budget, there's a loan with an obligation to buy a house that'll stretch the budget. You got Johan Lang, who just cannot do this job. He doesn't have the contacts to get the players in. He doesn't have the sway or the pulling ability to get the players in. And make no mistake about it, he has let Ange Postecoglou down. He set him up for failure before the season even kicked off. I was on last one on Spurs, and I was saying about the January transfer or the summer transfer window. I says, I'm really alarmed. The only player we've brought in is Dom Solanke. The rest are all youngsters. I see real problems on the horizon this season. I see a lot of inconsistencies, and I don't think we're going to achieve what the fans are expecting us to achieve, even what Postecoglou has said his ambition is, and James Maddison to a degree at the start of the season, which is trophies. We haven't done the window to back it up. I foresee the problems coming, and Johan Lang needs a lot more scrutiny. And lastly, Postecoglou is the only manager to deal with not having Kane and Son to bail him out. Every other manager has had that benefit. Even the season before we sold Harry Kane, 22 points in terms of winners and equalizers he put on the board that season, let alone how many Son done last season. We don't have that season. And I also think that is a massive contributing factor to where we are right now. And that's why I don't believe even bringing in another manager is really going to change it, because we have had 2 of the best forward players in world football that everybody has wanted. And now we're sitting here with relegation fodder going forward, and we're wondering why we look so crap going forward, why moves are breaking down, why we can't execute the basics. Everyone's going on about the back line, but if you can't sustain pressure up front, if you can't, put cohesive moves together, the ball just keeps coming back one way, and eventually it's going to leave you exposed. The biggest problem at this club is we never gave Postecoglou the forward line to ever make this work.
Yeah, and I do agree with that, David. And, I've been saying it as well in terms of you're looking at playing one way, one philosophy, and you do make tweaks in that philosophy, but basically, essentially, you're a slave to the philosophy, what Ange Postecoglou is. And what other managers have been in the Premier League. Conte was like that as well. Jurgen Klopp was like that. And I keep saying Jurgen Klopp was afforded the ability to get the best in class to fit his system and fit his model, and the rest is history. He went and won the Champions League, went and won the league, the only real manager to really take Man City all the way in the Premier League, getting 99 points and not winning the league. The reality is the way that Daniel Levy runs this football club and the way that we deal with our transfers, we're not going to give Ange Postecoglou what he needs to succeed in the job. We're not going to give Antonio Conte what he needs to succeed in the job. For Antonio to succeed, it takes exactly the same as what it takes for Ange Postecoglou to succeed. They need players that fits their system down to a T. You're looking at the players that we've got right now in the squad. Pedro Porro, his natural position is a wing back. His natural position is not an inverted fullback. Destiny Udogie, his natural position is a wing back. His natural position is not an inverted fullback. You've got Brennan Johnson. He's not the exact fit that we need for a wing style player in our football team. There are so many kind of square pegs and round holes in this Tottenham starting 11 and squad in general. And it was exact same thing as what we had with Conte. And in a strange way, actually, if we had the team now is actually more suited to a Conte style of play than it is for probably an Ange Postecoglou style of play, which is so classic Spurs. So I think what Spurs need as a manager to move forward. And look, I do like Ange, and I would love to be proved wrong, and I pray to get proved wrong by Ange Postecoglou every day. But I just don't think he's the right fit for this football club, the way Daniel Levy likes to run this football club. And I agree with you, Dave, so much that we need an adaptable style of manager, someone like Marco Silva, Thomas Frank, someone of that model who can switch it up game by game. Because I do think when you're looking at the Spurs squad, it's not a terrible roster of players, and with a few added bits of quality here and there, I think a manager can get the best out of it. But I just don't think that manager is going to be Ange Postecoglou.
But also, like, one of the things that, you know, when Ange was at Celtic, they gave him 29 players. In the second season, they gave him 14 signings. He already had picked, he had gone through the hard times and the adaptability of what he saw needed to happen. And he got his first team, kind of the formation of his first team and how he was going to go forward with it. Then all he did was just give him numbers and quality. And so he was able to rotate, he was able to play, he was able to do Europe and the league and multiple competitions. Like, that was just never going to happen here. So, but the conversation, so if you take, I agree 100%, just pretty much everything that they've said, and they're not points that you can really get past. They are like the most, and when I've kind of spoke about this stuff with Sim and you, Ben, like, it is like, yeah, he was never going to get back though. You know, it's like, we know that. So once you have to go, but then is the conversation, what your question is he the man for the job now? Like, should he stay or should he go, really? And it's like, well, he definitely is not the man for a kind of, you know, if you don't give him players, then he obviously can't play his system. That's obvious for everyone, right? But we've never seen him in a kind of relegation battle, or you can see him that he is completely bamboozled by the situation he's in right now. He's saying, stick to your guns. And then right when you probably kind of just need to stick to your guns now, then he goes to a back three when you don't have time to train it. Like, that for me was like, oh no, like, no. Now you're going to lose so many more people who you really couldn't afford to lose, you know? So it showed that, like, so for me, like, a lot of the stuff that I'd seen, you know, I don't really critique the ego and arrogance, because those are sometimes things that a manager has to bring in, because he has to create this kind of aura of, like, players have to look up. There has to be this kind of thing with the manager, right? And he has to stick to guns, because that's kind of what brings you to the party. So there's all of that stuff that is, like, very understandable, right? But then once you are in, and once you kind of know what Levy's about, and kind of obviously he's learning, but once you see the real state of the problem here, where you're never going to get 14 players in a transfer window, you are never going to get that backing. Then you kind of go through a season, and then you realize, okay, so this problem I've always had with the way I normally train, which isn't a big problem when I've got 29 players to deal with, but it is a huge problem here when we do not have enough quality. You know, like we're saying, take Son and Kane away. We've said for years that this would be a mid-table team. So we haven't done anything to mitigate how bad we would be without their quality. So you really have given Postecoglou a mid-table to lower team, really. You know, like, especially for his style, because now you're going to be in so much more problems. So then he's coming in, you know, at the start of seasons is the only real time where you can set up your style of play, your training methods and how you're going to go at it through the season. Because like Dave's saying, when you're playing 3 times a week, you don't have really hard training sessions. You don't actually really get that. So you don't have time to change things at mass. So your fundamentals are set. So now when we get into this problem, it's like, then that's what, Sam, that's what you're talking about. And that's what he's talking about with the context, right? My biggest problem was that with that is he saw this last season. We lost a lot of players last season, and we ended up having Emerson Royale, Ben Davies. We were going into big games with them in the back line, and we saw how problematic our season derailed, and we only really kind of just got it back. For me, that's when he goes, all right, look, I'm having a meeting, and I'm saying, look, I don't want to ruin, like, getting top 4, getting top 5, with top 6 with Spurs. I'll take that, but I am not going to go another season if you're not going to give me what I need, because I will kill these players. The way that we kind of do just our fitness and the way, and you don't have the medical team for it. I personally know that they do not have a senior physio at the club. They only have straight from university physios. They have one guy who oversees it. He's not a hands-on physio, so he doesn't really know he just oversees everyone's medical records. They don't have a serious. You go to Arsenal, they have guys who've been in for years. You go to any big top 6 team, they have hands-on physios that have worked across sports, worked at the highest level of sports. Spurs have guys who are straight out of uni. That means they've never helped a player get from near injury, see him through it, and then get them or get them from tear to recovery. So that's what we're dealing with. So, but the thing is, he knows this. He saw it. So then, for the life of me, I'm going, even if you don't like the player, you must rotate them. You cannot play Van de Ven more than 2 games. You probably can only play him for 70 minutes every game, maybe, right? Just until he gets enough game time that it's his thigh recovers that. It's the tearing inside. It's the scar tissue. That's the problem that they're dealing with the hamstrings. It's scar tissue. Scar tissue reopens if you don't get game time and constantly seed it, right? So this is what he's dealing with. He knows the situation. For me, he could have rotated Solanke with Kulu. He could have rotated Kulu with Madison. He could have rotated Ben. Again, not great options, but he did have the players. He could have had Reguilon with a doggy. He could have had Porro out and Spence. He could have had Spence in the European team. He could have done these things. And so the problem is, it's all the case of this guy has no idea how to try to get a club to compete when he doesn't have the squad, and he doesn't have the medical team, and he doesn't have the players to rotate, And I say
that's every manager at this level to a large degree. Every manager. Even Jose and Conte couldn't deal with it. Conte couldn't do it. Where things went wrong under Conte the second season is when we started incurring injuries to our best players. That's where things went wrong for him, and he wasn't able to get it back on. And we're seeing this inherently at Tottenham Hotspur, and this is where the problems come in. If you're not building a squad, at the end of the day, a manager picks players on who he can trust. Postecoglou already deemed someone like Reguilon not good enough last season. That's why it was okay for letting to go out on loan. Udogie got injured. Everyone at the club knew we needed left back this summer. They didn't get one. They said, go and pick Reguilon. Yeah. This is the problem at Tottenham Hotspur. Players that have been around for a long time that don't produce results, and managers don't trust. And Postecoglou's not the first one not to rely on this guy, by the way. Conte was the same. But yet all of a sudden fans are going, you've got to play him, you've got to play him. Yeah, from the outset, fine. That's the obvious. But if you're a manager and you don't trust me, you've already said to the club, I want a left back, you haven't got me one. At what point, he's not going to play him. It's just the life of a manager. If you don't trust a player to do a job, you're not going to play them. And this is the problem.
It's like what Maresca's doing with Chilwell.
We need to build squads for these managers properly. We're asking them to rotate, to change, to do this and the other. But if they don't trust the players, they're only going to work with a small squad. The problem is at Tottenham, if you're competing on all 4 fronts, you're allowed a 25-man squad for a reason. We never even get anywhere near close to that. Every squad we register, there's always a couple of goalkeepers that are just hanging around for homegrown status and stuff like that. A couple of players that have always been on the periphery, but they're okay. Just register them. This is the big problem at Tottenham Hotspur. If we really want to go and catch Man City's, Liverpool's, teams like that, you need to build a squad.
But Dave, here's the thing though, and I agree that, so that's again going back to the start stumbling block is the club structure, Levy, Lang. But when you're in it and you're on the go, you kind of have to adapt. And I get that
he's given up though, Brains, and he doesn't know how to adapt. He's never been in this situation before.
But this is my point.
But you just hammered him for trying to adapt, David. He went to a 3 at the back. He tried something different, and you're hammering him for it.
Yeah, because he lost me. Because I believe you that, like, you know, if you're going to sit there for a season and a half and say, you know, I don't have plan B and C, I have plan A. This is the way I want to play. You know, and then you switch to a back three.
It's not the first time he's done a back 3. It's the first time he started with it.
He's only done it with like 10 minutes to go.
But I'm saying, but clearly he's done it before.
Every time it's been a disaster.
Okay, but he's still tried it.
In a situation like this.
We haven't worked on it, and you know, I think many fans, if he played the back 4, put Archie Gray in midfield, to be honest, I think we would have went and bet Everton. I think the back 3 was a huge problem. It was glaringly obvious gaps. We didn't know how to play with it in possession, and it's something that we just haven't worked on. The majority of his time at Tottenham Hotspur, he's played with a back 4. That's what they're working on. They don't have too much time with travelling and everything else to be really working on these formation changes, and that's why I think it's suicidal. The thing is,
everyone looked lost, David, didn't they?
What he got me is when he said, "I'm not going to change. This is my philosophy." And I'm like, "Grand. Everyone else has to be on board. There's no other option. You know, the club, the players, etc., etc." But I almost feel like when he goes and does that, he's lost belief in what he's doing. And if he's lost belief in it, I'm going to lose belief in it.
Yeah. No, I disagree. I think he changed the formation for a specific reason. We didn't have Brennan Johnson went down injured, Solanke went down injured, and so he wanted a formation that could keep width but also still have a presence up front. He wanted Decky a bit more central. He wanted to keep Son a bit central in Madison, but he wanted Porro and Spence to provide the width because we didn't really have any wingers on the day. So he changed it up, and it backfired. Don't get me wrong, it backfired, and he fell down his face. But he did try something. Like there's a reason for it. It wasn't just for no reason.
It was worse than backfired. He looked completely lost. Every player on that pitch.
I'm not saying it worked. I'm acknowledging.
I know you're not saying it worked, but it was the complete. I mean, what credit do you give him for trying something and it goes wrong?
I'm just saying there's a reason for it, and we're
constantly everything.
Yeah, but I'm saying we're constantly hammering him for not changing a plan A. He sticks to it and he changes it, and you're hammering him for the fact that he changed it.
Yeah, and it went horribly wrong.
But this is my point, though, is that along the road he. It's fine if you go, and I agree with David as well, like some manager, if you don't trust a player, you don't trust the player, right? And to all intents and purposes, he didn't trust Jed Spence, and he was proven wrong. So sometimes people go, well, maybe I do just have to get out of my arrogance and just trust people, especially when you're in this situation where the reason that if you do not trust the player, even if you don't like him, then what you're going to do is you're going to kill another player off. The player you do trust actually gets the brunt of the pain. You are killing the players you do trust. So it's this. That's the thing he doesn't have experience in. He's only ever done his way and it's worked, right? But you actually are consistently being proven wrong, Ange, and you have to see that. You have to see that actually this situation, I know it's a shit show because of what the situation is, but that's what a manager is. A manager in any form of the word is someone who manages the problems. And it's every single day as a manager, you're dealing with problems, right? So he can't just, we all know the reasons for it, but when you're in it, you can't just ignore players and then watch other players get injured. You can't just ignore Will Lancashire and not play him in a FA Cup game. You can't not play him. He comes on, scores against Galatasaray. For me, that's a high-level game. That is a high-level game. Europa League. And he's come on and shown you he's got what it takes to get in and score a goal. And then now you're never going back to him. So for me, that is absolutely punishable by losing faith. He did it with Jed Spence. Jed Spence might be our best player right now. Bergvall might be our best player. And that's not to say anything great, because maybe we're now just getting used to seeing the level of okay players because we don't have other bigger players. But they are proven week in, week out that he should have had the faith in them. And that is where it's gone down and down and down. Even to right now, he still isn't showing faith in certain players. So then for me, in that context, when all of a sudden, now you change to a back 3. And I get that I understand that he was trying to cover Ben Davies. He knew he didn't have space to run. He was trying to give less space for him to run. I get that. But then play Reguilon and Davies, because that's 2 left-footed players. It means they don't have to turn a certain way. It means there's more coherence and balance on that side, even if they're not, they've not got a lot of game time between them. or you just don't change things too much, or you just play Archie where he's been playing for so many weeks, and now he kind of gets the position. Just leave him there and just leave Radu that side. And then 45, 50, 60 minutes, bring Ben on. And don't do too many changes when you're in the shit show. You know, it's like, or just trust Reguilon. Just give him 45 minutes. Just start that game with Mikey Moore, give Yang a go, give Will Lancashire a go. I get that it's weakening, and we go, well, these players have, come on, this is insane, right? But he loses the half 3-0 anyway. Were we going to lose the half 3-0 with them? Might you have just seen someone do something special? Might you have been proven wrong again? And maybe just then you would have given that little bit of respite to players who were dying for it. Now we've got players out, more and more players out. So for me, that's the big reason of like, yes, we know how we got here, but this is only getting worse by the second. So now you're going like, look, I want the best for this guy. I feel so much sympathy for him, but we're killing footballers here. Van de Ven might never recover from this. And it didn't have to happen. There is no way you're telling me a professional coach puts a football player with a recurring injury into a Premier League game against your rivals and starts him. No way you're telling me that happens. That for me is like, he should have been pulled out then. Like, how have you done this to our best player? Of course it's going to happen. He had two centre backs who had injuries. And he's going, oh, but Romero, it wasn't. It's the same thing. Injuries leak on from, if one leg gets an injury and it's fine, the other one takes too much strain because it's not ready yet. It's mind-blowing that he threw them in that game. And then bang, we lose them again. And then it gets worse. And then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So I get it. How he's been treated, wrong. His legs have been cut off from the start. But when in the problem, where you have to show for the first time in your career that you can be versatile, you're in the big leagues now. This is not other leagues. This is not where you've been supported. Now you've not been supported. Now, like I said to you, the mark of a man is how they handle adversity. Now is when you prove you're a good manager. When you don't have it all your own way. This is what he should have been going, finally, I've got the chance in my career to show I can do something special here. I've got a dreadful board, dreadful medical system. I'm being, stabbed in the back all over the place, but I can do something here. I can have trust in youth. I can reinvent Reguilon. How amazing would that have been? Instead, we're sitting here going, no, you've killed Udogie. You've killed Van de Ven. Like, that's the lasting memory.
And if we keep going, Porro and Kulusevski are going to get killed as well.